All right, let's go to Walter in Nebraska.
All right.
Walter, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey.
Thanks.
Hey, awesome. What can we help you with today?
Well, I first wanted to say that I'm a founding member. I'm calling in under pseudonym today, but yeah, I just got your pin in the mail, and I'm really happy to see you guys up and running. And
oh, good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yay.
Good.
Well, thank you so much for already being such an amazing part of our support network, Walter.
Yeah.
Plus, calling in, what can we help you with?
So I've got a tricky question. Okay, so I know that I have white privilege. I've worked hard to get where I am, but I recognize that I've had certain things that have helped me get where I am. And I'm wondering if that relates to my religious freedom as well. I'm wondering if there is a correlation between economics or being able to be educated outside of your family or being able to rid yourself of certain cultural things and skepticism and atheism. Just kind of fleshing out that idea.
Yeah, that is a huge conversation, and we will only scratch the surface of it on this call, I guarantee you. Even if we were to spend the rest of the episode on this conversation, we would just scratch the surface.
Yeah.
First of all, congrats and kudos to finding that connection. That is a connection that we need to be able to identify as a community, and the fact that you have found that link between white privilege and the current state of skepticism, atheism, is really important. So great work there. I think that we can take this in one of two ways, right? There is the one way which suggests that maybe non-white people are more inclined to believe in religious concepts, which I would be concerned about, like if that was the claim.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do know, we've talked with Mandisa Thomas, that Black non-believers, Black atheists, are having a really difficult time finding community because the community is very religious. I don't think that's an inherent thing. I think that's a social thing, but that is an intersection that we need to pay attention to. But on the other side of things, and this is the direction I would take this conversation, we have, I'm not calling anybody out. This is just weirdly apt for the situation. I saw a tweet that said, less tribalism, more skepticism. And I agreed with the premise that I know they were trying to make, because I know this person, they're a good person. They're trying to say, don't adhere blindly to your group at the expense of being a skeptic. But the fact that tribalism is the word that we use there to denote, lack of skepticism or lack of accountability is very strange to me, and very, very. It's expected because of the way the culture that we grew up in, all of us, is one of colonialism, right? Colonizing. And so we have painted tribes and tribalism as this negative thing, where we could just as easily say, no, what the community needs is a more communal accountability and care structure that tribal groups have been practicing for millennia and that have frankly gotten us as far as they have.
I have a totally different take on that.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
I am so intrigued to hear your response to this. But the overall point that I'm trying to make is the way that current skepticism and atheism is practiced in the Western world, especially in the US, is very white-centric. It is very Western. It is still very Christian. Like the way that we talk about atheism and the worldview that we have, even as atheists, has been influenced so much by a religious culture that it is really difficult to get outside of that and see that not only are we perpetuating a lot of religious stuff, we're also perpetuating a lot of white Western privilege as well. So I think that link is super important. But again, like this is just the bare minimum that this conversation will reach as far as I'm concerned. Like I could talk about this for a year and still not be satisfied with where we come out. Okay. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Well, that comes into two parts. First, the tribalism comment. Well, that's actually going to go second. Okay. The first, I think, is the statement about white privilege and skepticism. And to contextualize that, We have a lot of international viewers, but even our international viewers recognize that here in the United States, we live in a country where historically, and, it has led to today that people who are white generally have more leeway in this society. And it was a lot worse in the past. I think that partially it leads to Maslow. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he stated that you need to have a lot of prerequisites in order to get towards self-actualization.
Mm-hmm.
And
fun fact, Maslow's hierarchy of needs was actually stolen from an existing indigenous structure and then rebranded. On topic.
So where I'm going with this is I think that when you look at people who have a lot of their basic needs taken care of, right? You have, you're not worried about food. You're not worried about where you're sleeping at night. Your safety, and that includes your safety and security in the society and in the group that you're in, and all of that. All of those things kind of need to be taken care of, right? You need to make sure that the lights are on and that there's food on the table before you start moving into these abstract concepts, because that stuff's important. You didn't get great philosophers in Greece and the Middle East until that society had built up such that people were living with excess, and with that excess they were able to have professions that weren't just farming and things like that. And that's when you have the growth of math and science and philosophy. And I think that is
I'm not
really.
Yeah, no, farmers invented math. Like if you read
I'm specifically talking about like the theoretical algebraic kind of. You're right. I
like the concept of math was created to divvy up farms in like Sumeria.
Fair.
Okay, sorry. Continue.
That's okay. I was speaking too broadly. I appreciate you calling me out on it.
I'm calling you in.
Oh, God damn it. Where I'm going with this is I think that in the United States, I've been to atheist conventions and it is mostly white. It's almost entirely white. And I think that is because there are more white people that enjoy that kind of thing. Now, are there people who are absolutely broke and don't have their needs taken care of who are also atheists and skeptics? Absolutely. I just think that that is a contributing factor. When it comes to those privileges, I think that when you're not worried about, like here in Texas, where I now need to make sure I've got my driver's license on me at all times,
Christ.
or else I'm going to get pulled over and I could get deported for being brown. If I'm spending more time worried about that, I'm not exactly spending as much time taking on those kind of higher concept things. Now, the next is the tribalism. I don't get that at all. When I think of tribalism, I think of in-group, out-group dynamics. I'm not thinking of a tribe as in a race or ethnicity of people, but I think of a tribe as a group that you see yourself as in, or specifically not in, and that, we tribalize ourselves. And those tribes tend to push very dogmatic kind of views towards certain things. And so if you're part of the tribe, you're kind of expected to roll with it. And that can be also included, when you're talking about race and privilege, right? Being Latino, in a lot of places, you're expected to be Catholic. It's just the way it is, in a lot of predominantly Black communities, you are expected to be a Christian who goes to church. There are those pieces that kind of tug on you in that way, and it's not just, oh well, I'm a churchgoer, but it's part of your identity and it's wrapped up in that tribal identity. So
I don't think the concept of in-group, out-group is the problem. I think that the issue is that we have decided that is what that particular word means, because it comes into play as a counter to what we consider to be, the objective, rational, democratic thing, which is the picture painted by the U.S. and England and like the places where I don't know. There's a whole conversation here. Walter, we have been talking and talking and talking, and you have not gotten a word in edgewise, and that is my fault. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot to chew on there. With tribalism, though, just to repeat it back to you, are you saying that because sort of the bulk of Christianity is white dominated, that the response, therefore, is also somewhat within that same, tribe?
I would push back on that. I think when I talk about Christianity, I'm talking specifically about the Christianity that impacts me in the West, in the U.S., the particular brand of Christianity, specifically the U.S. and the U.K., and this kind of more Western white version of. There are tons of Christians that are not white. That is not what I'm saying.
Oh, sure.
But what I am saying is that as atheists who grew up in a white Christian world, our atheism is tainted by that white Christian worldview. And unless we very explicitly look for those connections like you're doing, like we're talking about right now, it's very easy to continue to perpetuate those white religious structures that are oppressive to other people and leave out entire worldviews that could be very beneficial. As far as the tribal thing, that's more of a pragmatic argument in terms of why do we use certain words and what's the history behind them and what are the connotations that come with it. But I just thought it intersected nicely. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There is a connection. We need to be aware of it. And we need to think about what parts of our atheism and skepticism are being influenced by that white privilege and by that worldview, and challenge that as well, deconstruct that as well. Understanding that there is no God is just the first step in becoming a better person.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. With Eric's point, though, real quick, then, I appreciate that validation because I wasn't liking where my brain was going because, you could almost say that you're a Christian because you don't have time to be educated, which obviously is wrong and offensive. But we can also recognize that if you have to work 3 jobs just to survive and feed your kids, you're not going to have time to deal with philosophy or, read certain books or expand your horizons or even travel to other states, let alone countries. So, I felt almost like a jerk. I'm thinking about those things, right? But I don't know. I appreciate your responses.
Well, just recognize that, in other countries where it's not white people who are the privileged group, you still see those dynamics. It's not the whiteness part as much as it is the privilege part.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
lots of chat in the chat right now, which I'm super excited about. So yeah, if you're listening to this, leave a comment. We'll probably run a poll for this clip. But yeah, we're good to go. All right, Walter, thank you so much for calling in. Continue to have this conversation with yourself and see where it leads you. Call back if you have any other questions related to this, because it's super interesting.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna have to have a whole conversation about this, aren't we?
Yes, I understand the want to recognize, hey, here's the privilege that I have, and here's the perpetuation of that privilege. But I also don't think that it is. I think it's all shades of gray, and I think it has a place, but I also don't think it necessarily belongs at the top of reasons.
I want to say something drastic here for a second.
What's up?
Reparations is directly tied to getting rid of that privilege in skepticism. Okay.
Direct reparations is directly tied.
That's my opinion.
So what if you're receiving reparations and you're religious? Are you going to sit there and say, hey, thank you for the reparations because I'm not skeptical? That sounds terrible.
No.
Please clarify, because that's exactly what every single comment under that clip is going to say.
Reparations, as it's being talked about, is talking about college tuition. Talking about getting people who have been systemically oppressed into secondary education and funding that. more people in secondary education results in more skeptical people, because that is where a lot of those conversations begin to happen. That is where a lot of that access to education and other worldviews and other ways of thinking are made available, especially considering the shitty nature of our public school system right now.
I think you could tie those in that way, but I don't think that one. I'm brown and I didn't go to college, so where do I fit? Which is why
I'm not.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't understand.
No, exactly.
Wow.
The point is,
sorry,
what?
college educated.
No, what? Jesus Christ.
I said I don't understand. You said exactly.
Oh, that didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a filler word.
Got it.
It was definitely not actually intended in that way. I'm happy to go into that more, probably in a C'est La Vie. I would love to actually dive into this and see. That was just me throwing a bone out there, seeing what you guys think about it.